In preparation of the arrival of my husband and I's first child in March of 2020, we identified that I was susceptible to being diagnosed with postpartum depression. It was because of that predetermined fate that my doctors and care staff decided to set up programs and resources for me to receive the help that I needed, not only for my entire pregnancy, but afterwards. Although they never even considered that we may have concerns for my husband's mental health, nor were we even offered any opportunities or possibilities for him to receive help. It's because of that I decided to choose the topic of postpartum depression in male father figures, because unfortunately there are thousands of stories just like my husband's. The DSM-5 defines postpartum depression, or PPD, as the diagnosis of depression during the postpartum period, now in contingency with perinatum onset. It has come to many attention that women are not the only ones who can be exposed to postpartum depression, but fathers now too. The signs and symptoms of maternal PPD are typically sleep deprivation, fatigue and low energy, anxious feelings, guilt, paranoia, desensitization, lack of emotional connection to the newborn, and potentially even child neglect. But it's because of these physical identifiers that we are more easily recognizing postpartum depression in mothers. However, the symptoms experienced by most men are not as effortlessly pinpointed. Paternal postpartum depression tends to arise from many stressors relating to relationships, gender roles, parental and societal pressures, and even become contingent upon the maternal behaviors and moods. Other symptoms may be noticeable in forms of incompetence, lack of interest, anxiety, mismatched expectations of pregnancy, as well as avoidance of responsibilities. The differentiation between what postpartum depression looks like among mothers and fathers is simply due to the internal and external factors. To further explain, maternal postpartum depression can most likely be attributed to internal causes such as chemical and hormonal imbalances, body dysmorphia, physical changes in their bodies, as well as breastfeeding. Whereas for fathers, the external causes such as masculine socialization, gender role stress, self-efficacy, and lack of social support may drive emotional distress. Allow me to dive in further. The masculine socialization has been studied by Mahalik and Dabianca in 2021, which their study came to the result that outwardly presenting masculinity, as well as the stigma behind boys don't cry, can contribute to the lack of help-seeking behaviors in paternal figures, and to continue to push through their emotions, they continue the provider bravado, meaning they have to be strong and the backbone of their family structure. We're able to see how prevalent the lack of social support and social stigma are truly impacting paternal postpartum depression in those who identify as stay-at-home fathers, for example, or SAHF. A qualitative study was conducted by Caperton et al. In 2020, resulting in stay-at-home fathers having reported experiencing feelings of isolation, loss of independence, and negative repercussions of social stigma. To continue with this trend, stay-at-home fathers are not the only ones who are at risk for paternal postpartum depression. Others include those who father very young or very old, fathers of low-income families, as well as minority fathers. My want to change includes the beginning of a 3-step plan of action, which includes education, allocation, and encouragement. Firstly, I wish to spread more awareness and education and have that be made more readily available within the communities. It wasn't common knowledge that father figures could be diagnosed with postpartum depression, and this information even seemed to surprise the wives of, or spouses, I should say, of these father figures. An article reported by the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, stated having initially experienced pushback on the father's end from doctors and therapists because their symptoms couldn't be identified similarly to mothers' postpartum depression. So if we continue to educate individuals, eventually we could then educate in larger scales in terms of schools, businesses, etc. With large-scale education, we are then led into step 2, which is allocating for better resources. Many jobs offer programs such as maternity leave and FMLA, which is a family medical leave advocacy program. And those are typically extended to employees after a certain given amount of time, but mainly mothers. And ideally, because fathers are not seen as the primary care provider, they are given less of those resources. As an example, the military offers 10 to 20 and possibly 42 days for paternity leave. However, mothers are given 6 to 12 months. So again, with that education, we can then further these programs within our community installations, businesses, schools, and moving forward. And lastly, the encouragement and support behind these fathers. If we are then able to provide better access within our communities, we can then create more safe spaces for them to openly seek help. It is our duties to acknowledge and meet these mental health concerns of father figures with compassion and awareness. And in order to do that, we have to continue this ongoing process of educating and changing. To conclude, as our family structures continue to change, it is definitely our job to encourage the notion while also embracing these new ideologies of newfound family structures by seeking education and understanding, allocating for better resources, and just spreading awareness and compassion. Thank you.